You're gonna have to. I'm gonna need this, Blake. Welcome aboard, everybody. Happy Friday. Whenever Blake and I sign off on a show, we never know what the hell the week's going to bring. One of the stories that we're kind of following is the ongoing revelations about Steve Bannon. It's not looking good, Blake, for Bannon. He apparently a report I just read today, and I've got a number of links up here, but I guess he's the guy. You wonder how John Bolton got into Trump's cabinet in the first round. It was Steve Bannon who brought Bolton into Trump's circle. Of course, Bannon's been a real bane for Trump ever since that point. But welcome, James Farley to the show, and anybody else who happens to drop by while we're running things. Daily memes is a lot of fun. A big part about the world and what's going on is waking up to the mystery behind everything. And so Dilly Memes, Brandon Dilly's is a good account worth following. He's got this one. I hope I got the right thing for him. Let me just make sure I click on it so we get it right. There we go. That's what I want. Whoops. And then I want to go back in here and play it. Bear with me. Early days. Holy smokes. Here we go, Blake. This is kind of a fun one. Let's go big on it. Find out where it is. There it is. Let's go full. It's just a little video with a message from our side of things. Here we go.
Do you ever feel it? That something is wrong with the world, like a splinter in your mind? The Matrix isn't fiction. It's real. A prison built not of walls, but of lies. I saw it young. Hollywood dreams, silicon toys, news anchors with plastic smiles. All tools. Tools to shape perception, to cage thought. Behind the curtain, puppet masters move. They don't wear uniforms, they don't need guns. They run psyops so refined, the Army's ghost unit seems quaint. These are the true threats to America, to Trump's success. You ask who they are. If I told you, would you even believe me? Their network hums not in Congress or courts, but in the cold, sterile halls of globalist think tanks. Foundations with friendly names, but sinister goals. They fund chaos, open borders, climate hysteria, digital leashes. They write the scripts, censor the dissent, push CBDCs to track your every step. But I see through it, and so does he. Did you think the last administration was in charge? Orders signed with an auto pen while the world burned. Now Trump's returned. MAGA isn't a campaign, it's a counterattack. Knight to F3. The center seized, but the board is still crowded. Bureaucrats, media pawns, globalist bishops. They will not surrender the game because Trump is the one variable they cannot control. Unbought, unbroken, the voice of the people. And if the people ever wake up, if they ever see the psyop for what it is, they'll burn the system to the ground. The real war has only just begun.
Okay, so Brandon Dilly Studios, Blake, and so it's a graphic. It's it's chock full of mean symbolism, et cetera, et cetera. But it is interesting. And Salon from Nashville has joined us, and he goes, "Trump is winning." Yeah, Trump is winning. We're winning. When Trump wins, the people win. That's what we think it is. That's what we said is. I've got some very positive news regarding the U.S. economy. That doesn't bode well at all for the Canadian economy, but bodes extremely well for the American economy. So, Blake, what do you think about that meme? You can break down the messaging style and the propaganda aspect. It's pure propaganda, I admit it, but it has a role to play to encourage and to build hope when there's a lot of frustration, a lot of confusion happening out on the streets and on our news screens every day.
Well, and I think that it just, it encapsulates what I think many of us have been watching for a long time, going back to even to the 1990s, for myself. But and I would think even longer for yourself. So, when you have that veil of the world kind of pulled back away from your eyes, and you start to see what's going around you, doesn't make sense. There just seems to be wheels within wheels of things in motion. And I think that little ad makes sense. I mean, that's what it's kind of covering. It gets into the Matrix, movie philosophy that, what you're seeing isn't real. It isn't real. It isn't reality. That there is these mechanisms behind the scenes managing your life or trying to control your life. And I think with the advancements of modern technology today, it's just sped that up. And I think we were talking off camera the other day about what Art Bell used to call the quickening. And I think that is tied to the fact that communications and systems are moving so much quicker, so much more rapid. Our bodies are adapting and adjusting to these changes, but it's hard for us because we're spiritual animals. Let's call it for what it is. We were created to be spiritual, and we feel things, we sense things. And I know all the Star Wars people are probably going, "Oh, come on, that's the Force isn't real." Well, I'm sorry. Star Wars is referencing, I think, in a lot of ways, what Christians would talk about the Holy Spirit. They would feel it, and you just know something's wrong. And when God starts touching people's souls, you don't even have to be a believer to start. He just starts. That's how he taps you on the shoulder. Hey, look over here. What do you think?
Yeah, it's the drawing. Yeah,
and so all of a sudden you start to notice things that you would have probably couldn't care less about in your past.
yeah.
And things start to happen, and you start questioning things like, what the heck? This doesn't line up. This doesn't make sense. And then it's hard when you're watching a show like that. How could a group of people organize around the world this secret group or group society and I saw one guy talk about it one time, and he said, well, there's only really about 500 of them. The rest are all employees of that network, right? So it's not that hard to organize it, but still you're going to have disagreements within there. These are supposed to be people. But you kind of look at the hive mind mentality of the far left, progressives on their boot soldiers on the ground, like they are brainwashed. They do call outs on the street. They follow the call out. They keep doing it. And if you have to interject the side of evil into this. And if you don't believe that there's an evil presence that's working behind the curtain at all times, then you're probably going to have a hard time putting this together, because you have for those of us who believe that there is satanic inspiration going on behind the scenes. We believe this is happening. And if you're going to organize a group like this worldwide, the spiritual connection is the connection for them, and the negative side of that, the evil that is being done. And then now it's being exposed, right? We're seeing I think we're just like with the Epstein files, we're seeing that sort of microcosm look into one aspect of this octopus.
Certainly, a lot of darkness is coming to light through the release of the Epstein files. It does look, on some level, Trump's the one that went and released them. They had Pam Bondi up on Capitol Hill answering to Democrats. They had nothing. There's nothing on her. Yeah. But we're getting some pretty high-ranking scalps, if you will, as a result of the Epstein files coming out and backfiring.
Look at the UK. UK is just
the UK's in a lot of trouble. This lady here is probably worth following for a lot of people. And I'll make this comment bigger once I find it. There we go. So one of the biggest scandals the media is hiding from you. This is Svetlana Lakova. She got kind of locked in with, I forget his name, General Flynn. When he was the former head of the NSA, and they brought him under scrutiny and under fire in Trump's first term. And they made a bunch of bullshit up about him. And then they were going to throw the book at him, lock him up. That never happened, fortunately. But he was a big target. So anyway, this is where this lady comes from. One of the biggest scandals the media is hiding from Obama's top lawyer his top lawyer. Kathy Rumler was also Epstein's lawyer and had a long affair with his personal lawyer. She defended Epstein even after he was convicted and was one of the executors of Epstein's estate. You got to be pretty close if you're working that deal. Rumler consulted Epstein on everything, including on Obama offering her the attorney general position. Rumler didn't want to leave her luxury New York City apartment to move to D.C. Epstein was trying to find someone to pay for her apartment. Ultimately, she moved to private practice at Latham and Watkins, where especially was getting her clients such as the Rothschilds, provided by Epstein, deals with Obama's DOJ, and allegedly getting cuts for herself and Epstein. Of course, her name is coming up. Very close friends with Obama. She has just had to retire or resign, effective in June, I believe, of this year, from Goldman Sachs. So, of course, Goldman Sachs, you think of Goldman Sachs, you think of power players, you think of Art Carney here in Canada, Mark Carney.
Mark Carney, but he is kind of an Art Carney.
Yeah, he will. But yeah, I'm dating myself. I betray my age when I go to Art Carney before Mark Carney. Shows how little I think about the guy. I don't give a who is this clown? He's just some guy they parachuted in. So so that is revealing of things that a big player like her. We also have the Gene Carroll, billionaire. We talked about him last episode. He's been photographed on the island. He's in a lot of trouble too. I forget his name offhand, but folks following this more closely perhaps than I am are aware of some of the names. Final thought on all this is really they thought they could get Trump on this. They got nothing. If there was one thing proved up on Capitol Hill by Pam Bondi is Trump can't be touched, not with Epstein. They knew this already, but it is starting to gain collateral damage out of Democrats, which is a beautiful thing to say. And as Blake just said, England. So England just had a very shameful, horrid kind of chapter where the Parliament there said we're not going to pursue any investigation or anything regarding grooming gangs in England. We don't want to touch it. So you've got all these victims. They just concluded a panel on these grooming gangs and human trafficking and sex abuse and all the rest of it in England by some right-wing politicians. But other than through the people and through vested parties, the main branch of the British government's deciding to do nothing about it. It's shameful. It's organized crime where they're allowing and they're covering for organized crime. There's no other way around it. Crazy, Blake. Go ahead.
Well, and that's allied to the Epstein files has caused much of the political apparatus of the people that are in it are being shown as part of that operation that Epstein was running, highly connected. As we finding out, Epstein's had his fingers all over the place. No pun intended. So I think in this case, I think it was one of the top advisors to Boris Johnson and obviously to the English government right now. And to the point Keir Starmer they were asking him to step down because of that connection. Sorry, I don't remember the name of the character that was highly connected to Epstein. And apparently he's in the government and he just basically apologized and playing the game like, oh, I know nothing. I see nothing. I just knew him kind of thing. And Keir Starmer's, I think, approval rating is dumped down to about 17 or 18%. But it's amazing. And then you watch what just happened yesterday. I mean, it just shows that either the people of the United Kingdom have experienced what Trump went through in 2020, where it was fake election. I just can't believe that the population would tolerate that and vote for people like that ever. I mean, there's going to be a certain percentage. They're going to do that, the far left lunatics. But it seems to me that the only way these guys get power is by this cheating system that has rolled out over the last 20 years. And as this keeps rolling forward with Trump's inquest going deeper and deeper into the 2020 election scam. Now, Obama just recently launched a video that's getting hammered on, where he's going after voter ID and legal voters and all
Yeah.
this kind of stuff. And he's entered into the fray because they've got nobody. That's the problem. That's the only person that the Democrats still hold up as like the Messiah. With the, you could call him the Democratic
Some
Jesus.
Democrats do. I mean, even Obama, for all whatever that was, at the end of the day, the numbers weren't there.
Yeah.
He just, I don't know if you want to believe it. Joe Biden outpulled Obama.
Well, 81 million votes. Yeah, Obama
Yeah.
was 69 million, and they were something with
Yeah.
the highest
It
number.
was more
Obama,
popular. Yeah.
unless it was 20 million extra illegals that they all handed voter ballots to. But no, I think it's the machines. I think it's the dead people. It's the counting systems that were all corrupted. And when you see that the EU is now being tapped for 6 known now elections across Europe where they have meddled and interfered in those elections. And it wouldn't doubt me for a second, Canada, even though we have voter ID requirements, but there's some shenanigans that have for a long time here. Quebec has been a cesspool of electoral fraud. But I guess where we're heading with this is that, what we're seeing in the UK is what's happening, I guess, to what the Promethean Action ladies have been targeting. It is that system that is organizing this global octopus against freedom and liberty and individual liberty. It is really a specter. It is, but it's the elites. It's the globalist elites, and it's horrendous. And when you're getting deeper, and quite frankly, I think it's great, and it was probably great timing. And maybe Trump's playing a little politics here, that he purposely held back the Epstein files a bit because the damage is now rolling out daily. And who's it hitting the hardest? The Dems. And it's right in an election year, right? The midterms
hitting the Dems, and it's also hitting his enemies. The enemies of Trump are being exposed
from within.
Well, because there's so much anti-Trump shit in the Epstein files. Somebody came out. Trump's mentioned like 135,000 times more than anybody in Epstein files. But then when you look at him as he's being mentioned, because everybody's talking about trying to get him out and take him down and criticizing him at every turn.
Well, he's now in that position where he has to try and, they're working on it. I mean, they're working on it. As we said, I think from our show from the beginning, we can't expect an overnight response. And that video kind of covered that. It's like, you still got this entrenched bureaucracy that's deep and decades deep. And it's picture terror cells left behind enemy lines to cause nothing but guerrilla warfare tactics against you.
Well, look at the difficulty in politically the SAVE Act passed, Blake, right?
Well, exactly. And even within the elected class, I'm talking about the hired bureaucrats, the public sector side that is entrenched with that mentality.
Yeah.
And they've got their leadership. We used to talk about that in the 1990s here about the left. The left is really good at, the right, when they take power, the problem they always had, they only changed the top layer, right? We'll bring in a few of our cabinet people, blah, 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 make some changes at that level. But the problem is when the left goes in, they go deep. I mean, it's right down to Nancy, the secretary. And I know somebody's going to say, yeah, it's pretty sexist, Blake, to say that. But I'm just saying, it's somebody down at the lower echelons of government is still empowered, is working with their unions.
Yeah, we know that already. There's a lot of hindrance and there's agents of chaos at every level of government, bureaucrats. Right.
Well, especially, I mean, what was Trump's big speeches in the 2016 campaign? Drain the swamp, right? That swamp, to drain it's going to take years. And if anybody's tried to build a dam or do anything like that or decommission a dam is probably better yet for it. We want that dam to break and they wash away. And that takes time. It takes a lot of time. They're anchored in without causing mass chaos to the people, right? You, the people who pay for those services as taxpayers, and half of it's garbage anyways. You'll be happy to see it go. But there is good people who work in government too. right? They're
Yeah.
not all corrupt class of people. Some of them are just in there, their heads down, and but they're there, they're doing their thing to make a living, and that's it. And Trump's acknowledged that, right? I think that's it. But there's the leadership that has cell structured into the government echelons at different levels of that echelon, is going to be a fight to get rid of. And that's why the midterms are critical, because that's when you don't have a lame duck president who's going to be tied up fighting endless attempts to destroy him,
Yeah,
like they
they'll
did in
impeach him
2016.
if we
And
lose
all the
midterms, yeah.
distractions will go to, oh, he's being impeached for this, impeached for that. And
Yeah, they'll do
And-
special counsels on him and all the rest of it. It'll be a
But-
repeat of the first term
but
garbage.
one thing if you guys watch Glenn Beck, go see his show from yesterday. He posted on YouTube. He covers some really important facts. He goes, what scares him the most is the language that's coming from that other side, is that when their words are, when this is over, we're coming for you guys. So understand the gravity of the midterms at this point. If you're an American, without a victory for the MAGA cause, those shields and protections now fall. They're coming for you. They're going to take everything you have. They're going to destroy you. And you're going to be stripped of your powers, just like they were trying to do prior to Trump getting in. It will be like COVID lockdown mentality, and people will be rounded up and thrown in jail again. And it won't be they'll just label you an insurrectionist, even if you just speak, they don't like what you're saying. So,
Yeah, it'll be more severe.
Yeah. So this is your chance to, and what was Thomas Jefferson saying, we gave you a republic if you can keep it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you've got your country if you can keep it.
So hold on to it. You got something special, never seen in history. A free republic like this. We had a Roman republic, but a lot of times it was a ruthless republic. So
let's change tactics or topic for a sec here. We had this incident in Canada. We had a trans woman go out and kill. I heard it's 8 children, and the shooter themselves is now deceased. We've got people in hospital in critical condition, a couple more in critical condition. So one little girl in particular, they didn't think she was going to make it. She's still hanging on, but Lord knows what her quality of life will be, even if she survives shot in the head and the neck kind of thing. It's just a horrific thing. But you have some thoughts about that, whether you want to share them publicly or you just like that behind scenes. That's fair enough. But what's your take on it and the media response to the incident? It's been kind of interesting. I guess some reports are saying Global News did a picture of the trans shooter, and they beautified her. They put a filter on and did some touching up. They felt, at least critics felt, in order to make the person appear more female. And some of the headlines were "Woman in an unusual twist." It's a female that guns down so many people. Well, keep in mind this person was born male. So a young person, but trans since 2012 or something. Blake, take it away.
Well, I think it was a horrible tragedy. It's disgusting what happened, and obviously our heart and really our prayers more than anything goes out to every single family and child that was impacted by that insanity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrible. There's, it's hard to wrap your head around is why do kids get targeted? Why do you go into a school? Why do you go and do this?
Was there a manifest or anything like that? A manifesto?
Well, I guess there was a bunch of stuff online that was quickly pulled down as usual on social media. But apparently one of the posts came up that somebody correctly pointed out. It seems like every one of these shooters that go on a madcap crazy are on Reddit, right? And so apparently there's a fair bit of information that was on Reddit. But it's not really, I think, the point, but you can read into the history of how somebody, let's face it, this person was I think just turned 18. just came out of teenagehood's been going through the transitioning
Well, I'd
process
argue
for,
they're still at 18 years old. They're still a teenager.
well, they're but apparently for 6 years had been undergoing, psychological changes,
Yeah.
going through the transitioning process up to 3 years ago, I think they were saying. But it just seems to me, whenever we're hearing about these mad shooters, regardless of the politics around it, what was horrible watching was the dance of our far left lunatics. And I mean it, our progressive nut bars that run our countries, our apparatus with law enforcement, trying to dance around identifying who this person was. And meanwhile, X was already saying it within hours of it happening. And, and basically, but the media and the government officials just couldn't do it. And then when they finally did, they looked like morons, right? Because they didn't know how do you address this? It's like, it's either the worst mass shooter in history done by a female, which would be a terrible record for women to have the worst mass shooter, mass shooter like this that turns out to be female, or does it line up with the check boxes that these politicians want on the far left side? Is that it is political? They say, well, it's not political. Well, it is political, because had the guy turned out to have been a Maple MAGA shooter, mad at all the far left lunatics in the world, and goes out and shoots up a bunch of school teachers because they got purple hair and all that, do you think the message would be instantaneous, far right lunatic from the far, white nationalist
with every pejorative they could throw out?
It would be out there within minutes, right? And
it
doesn't line up with the DEI checkbox.
Did you see Carney's speech and his reaction to it?
I saw his speech. I wasn't overly. It wasn't a bad one. Okay, it looked like he was actually impacted, because I believe he has a child or a teenager or that is transitioned or has.
Yeah, he's got a male to female in his.
Yeah,
a female to male, a girl. He has a girl that's running around like a guy.
I don't know if he was putting on an act. It's hard to tell, but it almost seemed real that it affected him.
The one I heard, maybe he did a couple of things. The one I heard is that he says it's important to remember our Islamic friends, the murder that happened at the Islamic temple or mosque in Canada where they had that shooter. In other words, he started to throw smoke screen up to say it's not just the trans people. It's, we have the far right shooter that went into the mosque or whatever the hell it was and shot up these
I didn't hear him say that.
People. Yeah,
it might have been a separate conversation.
It may be another speech he gave, but that's when I saw, and I could see because he was going, this is horrible. And it behooves us at this time to remember other examples of Polytechnique, and the one they always throw out, right? Mark Lepine. Lepine, his actual real name.
Background.
Yeah, whose real name I had no idea. They buried that on us too, that he was actually from Islamic background. Really interesting.
Libyan or Algerian background, or
something like that. But he was Islamic, came from an Islamic nation.
Well, and a lot of those North African countries were under French control, so that's why it was very, very. Algerians are very much intermixed with French culture. But
French Morocco, famously.
But when we look at this, I think one of the stuff we were talking a bit off camera before we started was, and it's something I don't like talking about stuff until I have more knowledge, but I do understand that there is something really bizarre that's been happening every time we hear about a mass shooter like this, and you start digging into the background and who's treating them, and their who their father was or who their uncle was or whatever, and there seems to be almost every single time some kind. I'm not saying in this case there is, but there almost seems to be a timing for this to happen and a purpose that enacts public policy, and it's supposed to trigger an alternate response to what the people are expecting. And, we're used to on the right, it's like every time there's a mass shooter, let's blame the gun and not the person. But I think
Yeah.
this is deeper than that. And I think when we look at historically that psychotropic drugs have been used to control and manipulate people. We know that intelligence networks were back as early as the 50s and the 60s using psychological warfare and drug warfare. People talk about the 60s revolution potentially under, psychedelic drugs being popularized was a release by the CIA from their MK Ultra experiments.
Yeah.
And guys like
Manchurian Candidate.
well, what's his name? Who is the big acid guy from the 60s that everybody used
Timothy
to,
Leary.
Timothy Leary, and they kind of tie him to the CIA and how, he kind of promoted the use of psychotropic drugs,
Psychotropic, yeah.
that change your personality, change who you are, which makes you more vulnerable to suggestion and spiritual moments in the drug, right? Which turns out that spiritual moment is opening you up to the wrong spirit, let's just say. And I guess where I'm going with this, it just, we saw this with the Aurora shooter in Colorado. There's a weird connection to the shooter for Trump as well, and the fact that he showed up in a Black Rock video and he was connected to
yeah.
And you see these shooters that seem to have somebody working with them behind the scenes, and it's almost like they're being groomed to become in a position where
a lot of them are on medication. I guess
exactly.
The difficulty of where you're going with that is to try and find a motive for it, like what's happening in the world. I could see it as a distraction, but what are we really distracting from, right? The halftime
they're like
show?
ticking time. Well, yeah, they're like ticking time bombs drug wise. But on the other side, is some of these things tied to purposely being done to mess with these people's heads, turn them into what they are? And then, of course, we're seeing a massive psychological warfare on the population through propaganda.
What about the shock factor? On a scale of 1 to 10, if it's possible for you to do, it may not be. On a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked are you by this? Like when you heard about, did your heart stop and was shock and horror? What was where do you sit in that?
Well, I guess probably like we were talking off camera, I'm a little on the jaded camp. I think it's kind of like it's more the horror for the children, because when I visualize what they're experiencing in my head, that just makes me feel sick. Because I've got a 6-year-old grandchild, and I'm thinking he's in school. Yeah. That could have been him, right? Yeah. And it's just like you're thinking right away. It's like the horror a child should never go through at that age, ever. And so, but with regards to understanding that our society has gone down a path to normalize, in a lot of ways, people who are mentally ill, and that's kind of the problem. Instead of treating them for their illness, they are turning them into anger machines, because nobody's treating it. They're just saying, accept it. It's normal, when it's not normal. It's abnormal.
And it's pretty hard to play the gun legislation issue when Canada's got so many laws and regulations regarding firearms, how we handle them, who's allowed to access them, and everything. Yeah. If this person was a transgender that was taking psychotropic medication for any condition of this individual, that person should not have been allowed anywhere near a gun. The fact that they were a young person, you wonder what the parents were doing with this young person.
And I think this is the problem. He's the product of a few years now of this propaganda machine running within our school systems, where they've normalized this thing above its normal, actual, natural course. It's like, yeah, there's a small, tiny percentage that do this, but now the percentages are off the charts because there's an indoctrination going on with our children. And then they need drugs. They need these hormone-changing drugs as children. And apparently BC, I'm not sure if this is breaking news, but I saw overnight that apparently British Columbia has lowered the age to 12 years old for.
Yeah.
Just came through. And
Yeah.
apparently Washington State's been at 13 years old for a while, but
Yeah.
can't. BC says, now hold my beer. After a shooting, let's make it even worse. And kids should be left alone to naturally progress where they are in their bodies biologically. We already go through enough. We've all been teenagers. We all went through the era of where things were changing and our ears are too big at one time and our bodies are adjusting, and we're already fighting a myriad of issues with changes in our bodies, the chemical changes, the growing up to becoming adults and try to be accepted, and maybe you had some difficulty growing up in your family, and all those issues you're trying to address. Now let's throw in drugs. Let's put puberty blockers. Let's put all these kinds of drugs in there to turn this into a shit mix of a disaster. And I think that's what should be seen as the red flag that our society needs to look at and say, are we going to keep accepting this psyop on us? Because it is a psyop. It's basically comes down to everything. They've told us now for a few years, the sky isn't blue when we look up when it's a blue sky. It's actually black. They tried to tell us COVID came from a bat, bat meat
Yeah.
sold at a Wuhan market. We're like, bullshit. They're trying to tell us what's science and not science. And it's the same gang running this crap over and over and over. And as I said, like what was Goebbels, the propagandist for the Nazi regime, who just said, tell a lie, tell it often enough until the people believe it,
Yeah.
right? Because they will believe it if you keep saying it over and over. And we've seen that over and over. So at some point, are we going to start caring about kids? And are we going to stop this crap? I mean, you have to be mentally ill to believe that's okay. And if not mentally ill, you are evil. Because if you're going to change kids and affect their growth, then you are evil, right? And that's the bottom line. You need to make a choice. You need to decide what on which day, which God you're going to serve. You're going to serve that God of the progressive insanity, which is, the decline of the Western civilization, which is what we're looking at, or are we going to defend children? That is the first right of a parent, the first right as a society, to defend the most vulnerable in your society. Defending them isn't drugging them up and changing them and forcing them into difficult changes at an age. As an adult, have at her, folks. I'm a libertarian on that. Do what you want as an adult. You've become an adult. You've made choices
One
as
of
an
the
adult.
biggest, when you talk about the children, one of the biggest problems for the West, and it's not related just to Canada, but the Western civilization, the advent of the birth control pill have a big role, but our declining birth rate. So,
Yeah.
there it's critical in terms of, where we are in terms of orientating towards young people. In general, there's fewer and fewer young people being born. Sue and I just have the one child. We got Marty here. Marty's got like 4 lovely daughters, and
Good
which
job,
is great.
Marty.
But that's
It's covering for us.
yeah, but that's more the exception than the rule. And so, because of that, then of course that becomes the rationale for bringing in a different population in order that produces more children, and
Yeah.
that would be our Indian populations and our Muslim populations, who, for reasons probably, cultural reasons, religious probably,
Well,
produce more children than we do in the West.
Well, I think the difficulty there is the countries are coming from are impoverished, right? So, and not all of them, but some are second world, but there's still a large swath of people that are in bad shape financially, and generally you populate more because you need the help, right? As a family, you grow and you have lots of kids because geez, you need as many hands to help you survive. That is your workforce. That is the people that's the way our society was as an agrarian society before the Industrial Revolution took over, and then all the things we see today. And then, of course, with great advancements in technology and great wealth came what biblically we would look like, what happened every time Israel, was liberated from some occupying power. God comes in, saves them, gets a messianic character to save Israel. And then what happens 2 or 3 generations down the road? The same thing, collapse, moral collapse. Oh, well, I don't want to have children. I just want to have fun. I just want to go have sex with everything that walks and talks. And then there doesn't seem to be any sense of the morality collapse. That was the fall of Rome, the collapse from within, the corruption, the vanity, the wealth. And I think that's the message to the world is, don't let the wealth control you. You still need to hold your values. And the values are having children is not a bad thing. And here we've got the richest man in the world now. I believe he's probably the richest now is Elon Musk. At least on paper.
He's number one. Yeah, I think
he's right up there now. I mean, there's a few kings and queens. Nobody knows how much their wealth truly is. But
on paper, he's frequently cited as
and here's a guy who's had how many kids? I mean, he's doing
a bunch.
Yeah, because he knows he's a smart guy. The data shows that we were on a demographic bomb. I knew this from the 1990s. While everybody's screaming, there's too many of us in the world. No, the demographers were already talking about this, the real ones.
Population collapse.
We were seeing the demographic bomb down the road because unless things were going to change, we had this massive boomer generation that was not having enough kids. That, as you talked about, the advent of the pill and all that stuff in the 60s, love revolution. Nobody wanted to have children. They wanted to go out and make money. They want to party. They want to have fun, rock, sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Yuppies came along.
Yeah. I want to be rich and drugs and party and yeehaw. So what happened in all that? Well, we have the next generation. Hello, Gen X, here I am. We were the tiny generation in between the little boost we got with millennials. Unfortunately, the millennials were propagated by the boomers in school who came with the same philosophy, which then degraded into more worse theories and philosophies. And again, the philosophies built by bored, wealthy, silver spoon kids who've passed down a couple generations of wealth, because the people who set up the world for us to be free went through great hardship to get there.
Yeah.
World wars, cutting down. Well, just talk about a farmer. Most of our areas were not area you could farm just by walking out there and planting the seeds.
Yeah, trees everywhere.
They were covered with trees and rocks and everything. Yeah. So they had to cultivate the land to be able to do it. And how did you do that? Well, there was nobody working with you. You couldn't go down and put a sign up in the local town and say, hey, I need 10 laborers to show up. There's no Jose crossing the border with his family to, you can go pick off across the border that way. No, you had to build your own workforce, and that was through families. And that was the agrarian society. You built farms, you built ranches, you built food production, and you built tools. You had all these things. But yeah, it's something that is unique to the West, but apparently has expanded into the second world. China is in a demographic bomb because they did it with their own gun to themselves. They said the one-child policy, which is then what happened with that. Or, of course, they have a very, the feminists, you should be getting all mad about this, but they've got a very patriarchal society, even though they're communists. The fact is the people there believe that the male is more important than the female. The female doesn't have as much value. So what did they do? They check every time they're pregnant. If it was a female, the female gets aborted. And they move, they got their male, they got their one male person because the male is the earner, right? That's the way they look at it. That's the heir, that's the earner. The females aren't earners. And so now they got this overabundance of men. And what happens if you have too many men? Well, you can't have babies. So that's the problem. Or you've got little rapey gangs going on in the UK when you stop having babies and you're bringing in people, mainly younger aged men who are showing up going, well, where are all the women at?
Where are the women? I love that. Yeah, Levan Little or Cleveland Little from Blazing Saddles. Where are the white women at?
Yeah, that's right.
Holy shit, that's funny. Hey, we got some good news on the economic front today. January, the inflation, the rate of inflation was 2.4, much better than they expected again. So That's kind of 2 months where Trump has come in with the inflation rate held at bay. And then I've got a link from Peter Ducey here talking about Trump versus Biden for what they've been able to see economically as regards to the economy. So, update: Peter Ducey drops a jaw-dropping fact check comparing inflation in Trump's first year to Biden's. So overall, and this is related to the inflationary numbers we're talking about. Overall inflation, Biden 4.3, Trump 1.6%. Grocery prices 3.8 have dropped to 1.4, or under Trump, it's 1.4. It's not a drop. Gas prices, Biden plus 24.4, Trump minus 5.4%. Trump is making America wealthy again. There's the thing.
Look at overall inflation.
Hold on now. Let's go back here, and so everybody we can watch it together. Here we go. Fox News.
When you look at overall inflation for the first year of Trump versus Biden, overall inflation was up 4.3%, higher than Trump, just up 1.6%. Groceries under Biden in that time, up 3.8%, with Trump up 1.3%. And then when it comes to gas, this is crazy. Biden up 24.4%, with Trump it is actually down 5.4%. That is where the biggest difference is. And we heard from the HUD Secretary, Scott Turner, this afternoon. They are racing to cut red tape for construction projects because the belief among officials here is that if housing is the #1 place where people are getting killed when it comes to affordability, if people are cutting red tape and able to build more houses and apartments, then the prices will come down. Pretty basic supply and demand in play. Will.
All right, good numbers, Peter Ducey.
All right, and then I want to show you this one. So here's Canada. Now this is where this gets a little interesting. Shazzy goes, the Bank of Canada is no longer talking about a recession. They're talking about a permanent restructuring of the country. Painful, decades long. No guarantee it's even going to work. Households pay more today for benefits they likely will not live to see. That's not stabilization. That's a reset. Interesting to see this picked up. The message matters. The Bank of Canada's economy, things get worse and then you die. And the other thing that happened today in economic news was that the president killed all the green Obama's regulations on green energy for automobiles. They had to put in a whole bunch of safeguard environmental protections within the automobile. Trump says, or pundits now say, Trump's ended those because they're coming out of the cars. Each individual buying a car are going to save $2,000 plus on every vehicle sold. $2,000 off the ticket price, just because you won't have to install these environmental items, which of course add to the cost of the vehicle.
Yeah.
So tremendous. Here we've got Canada going piling on the regulations. We're kind of like California or any other blue state you can think of. More taxes, more regulation. And our economy is like doing a dead man's float in the middle of the pool. Meanwhile, America's on rocket boosters, and it's only accelerating. It's already great, but it's getting stronger. And then one last comment before I turn over to Blake here. I'm a little tired today. I got up at 6:30, which isn't too bad, but I've been yawning a bit, so I do apologize to
That's
you.
all right. I'm with you. I didn't get much sleep last night either.
I got up early and away we go. But I just want to make note of that. So Blake, two economies in contrast: Canada going one way, Green New Deal, all that kind of thing, environmentalism. Carney constantly talking about the environment, and America saying no. And then in contrast, Blake, if America throws out its environmental protections, what incentive is there for Canada with our smaller population, our carbon footprint being so small already? Then why the fuck are we going to carry the burden of the world when our biggest trading partner and the largest economic power in the world sitting next door to us decides they don't give a fuck about it.
Sorry,
Well,
is that noise coming through? Sorry, I got a young
yeah,
grandson
it's
stomping
okay.
around up
It's
there.
no
Is
big
it
deal.
coming through? I just want to know.
Little bit,
All
but no
right,
big deal.
I'll have to go get them to cool it.
No, it's
Um,
all good. They're having fun.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my what I'm watching in there, yeah, it is a tale of two cities. I mean, it's come right down to one is going the right direction, one's going the wrong direction. I mean, I've often talked about how Canada is a crony capitalist corrupt state. I mean, it's essentially what it is. So the monopolies get the power. Their allegiances are sorry, they're jumping around up there and they know I'm on this show. I'm sorry if that's noise is coming through.
That's okay. We're
But they knew I was
friends.
doing this. I'm getting a little upset because it's blasting over my head.
Georgia's getting upset.
So anyways, I'm not sure what they're doing, but it's really loud. Let me come right back. I'll come back
Okay.
to my thoughts. I can't think when that's
Okay,
smashing
I'll
over
let
my
you
head,
go
like-
control the children. Holy smokes. What have I got? I got stuff right. I'll make myself big here for this. Holy smokes. Let me go here. I hope everybody's enjoying the show. Give us some thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're not already. Okay, let's see if I can get this. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, there's lots happening as we wait for Blake to get back. So one of the stories we have been following, and I really want to hear more of Blake's take on it, but it's not looking good for Steve Bannon. There's a lot of communication with Bannon and the Epstein. With Epstein, they were good friends. Some have argued maybe he was playing the role of a mole, working for the White Hats. Doesn't look that way. It looks like he was working to undermine Trump at every turn, didn't like Trump, was resentful of Trump, like so many that have come in Trump's circle and have left. And so a lot of documentation about that is coming out. And so it's not looking good for Bannon. And I think this is really interesting, is that not only is the left getting caught up in this, but the figures on the political white, Jack Posobiec, people like that do support Steve Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and other individuals, I think, are being shown up. Maybe some of them not necessarily being evil, though in the case of Elon Musk and Steve Bannon, he calls them outright evil. So he's just, he's not good. Okay, the Stupid Kid's about to get dealt with. Yeah, Dad's coming in to take care of business. All right, we got him back in the chair. Dad, how's it going? Oh, that we got you muted still, Dad. We got you muted. Put your mic on. You'll be a delay. You'll figure it out. Here you go. All right, Dad. Now, how are you feeling?
Well, there's a lot going on upstairs.
Ah.
I'm a granddad, not a dad. Honestly.
How old are the kids?
It's not just that. There's a bunch of moving going on up there too now. So
okay.
Apparently, he had a big delivery, so that's what it was.
Okay. What did we get? What was the
new couch?
Oh, I love new couches. New couch day is always fun. That could be exciting.
Yeah. So, but things are moving around over my head, so there's lots of crashes. So I was hoping it wasn't disturbing everybody while I was trying to speak.
I got another. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So go back to the economic side first.
Yeah. Canada, America. America going up, Canada going down.
Canada is desperate to hold on to its crony capitalist system of market monopolies, which is your supply management, controlled access to the market, and they continue to do that, which is interesting because the very thing that Trump gets accused of doing against Canada about putting tariffs, Canada's been doing it for a long time because they keep saying, well, there's certain aspects of our economy that we still need to be able to maintain and control. So they put tariffs, something like almost 400% tariffs on U.S. Dairy products. I think it's 300 and whatever it was, but anyways, it's a lot. Where it's not a two-way street, but this and it's true. Tariffs do financially harm the locals, and when especially you have supply managed situations. But the problem what was happening in the U.S. is they deindustrialized. right? And all of that got sent overseas to China, who is a geopolitical threat, and other countries as well, where it was cheaper to produce, basically slave labor in some of these places, or sweat. What do we call them? The old sweat factories for kids. But Trump's trying to reindustrialize, so he did what he needed to do to bring investment back to the United States, where Canada decided to go, yeah, let's go down the regulation thing, let's maintain and control, because regulation just helps control who has access to the market. That's all it is. And it's a way that the government bureaucrats and all them can also skim off the top. It's a big corrupt system, but this is why they're investing in different projects that are green energies that are going to fail, but they do it anyways because they get huge government.
And it's been proven time and time again. They fail.
Huge government subsidies, billions, some of them. And then who's got their ties on that? Friends and families and insiders of the buddies that are pushing.
Yeah, and then of course you get these organizations, NGOs come into play. A lot of corruption, a lot of money laundering occurs through these vehicles.
And these guys, you said, they go in dead broke or making an average wage, and they come out millionaires when they get elected. So I think the other side of this is, I was just going to say that Trump isn't going to be the tariff king for good. I think he did it because he needed to do something to reinvigorate the industrial base of the United States, bring jobs back to the United States production. But I'm just looking at a headline right now, apparently, that came out today. Trump plans to roll back tariffs on steel and aluminum, right? So I think that's a good sign. It means things are starting to work, and people would say, well, why did he put tariffs up in the first place? Why did it make things so expensive? Because he had to bring the investment home so that people start producing it at home, because it's a national security when nothing is being produced and built in your own
especially when it's in China. That's the most dangerous of all.
Yeah, geopolitical threats. You're giving power to who your competitors are, including India. India is technically an ally, but they're part of the BRICS group, which is a competing interest.
You know what I noticed? Like, I was in my grocery store 2 days ago and walking through with Sue, and I said, "Did you notice something, Sue? All the fruit that we have here from China, that never used to be the case. Used to see Florida all and California all over. You're not seeing California or Florida the way we did here in Canada. We're seeing a lot of Chinese and fruit that's really out there. Oh, wow, look at this dragon. This is a dragon apple or someplace dragon.
Well, especially if you go and see in the frozen seafood departments. I don't buy, like when we buy seafood and things like that, we see that a lot here. A lot of it's all packaged and captured in China. Yeah. And I'm sorry, China does not have a good record of environmental policy I'm a bit green on this, but they have high levels of toxins.
Oh yeah, very much so.
And they just don't seem to care, or any third world markets, where they're getting that food that you're buying in those stores is going to be dangerous potentially to you. I want to know that I'd rather buy local. I do. And who's next to local outside of Canada would be the United States. I feel safe buying food from the United States. And I'm sure some Americans say, oh, it's not safe here either. But much safer than when you look at the toxins that are being used on a mass scale and dumped into the oceans and all that around those countries. And I'm just not a fan of taking that risk.
Yeah, no, I agree. But it shows what's going on with Canada and China, that we're getting a lot more of their stuff over here.
And they don't, but that's the point. Our country is two-faced. They're saying, oh, don't eat, we're all for our market monopolies to protect Canadians, and they're condemning U.S. dairy products, saying it's horrible, not good, it's not safe, and all this kind of stuff. Yet that same government is bringing in loads of Chinese food.
Yeah, China doesn't have a big history of looking after. And we were talking last week or a few days back on Tuesday's show about dog food, or no, baby food. There was an embargo, or there's a withdrawal order. You can't have it there because there's problems with pesticides, or they're putting poison in the crap from China and
Well,
Wuhan.
BHP,
And it's
right?
literally
Yeah.
in Wuhan. It's literally the baby pablum is literally coming out of Wuhan. So it's just astounding. Anyway, so as I actually went to AI on that. Grok, is this true? Let's see what's happening. All right, here's a big question. This is a really big question because there's a portion of MAGA that looks at Israel as being the bugbear on everything. Is Israel running the show, steering policy in America? Blake, is Israel steering policy in America? Now, I got my own thoughts on it.
I don't know. Is the UK steering policy in America? Is Canada trying to steer policy in America? I mean, this to me is the phantom. I don't know what you call it. I think Israel has interests. Of course they do. They want to survive. They want a big brother, big tank of a country who can protect them when everybody around you wants you dead. So I think, yeah, you're going to do everything in your power to influence Rome, the new Roman Empire, if you want to call it. But
Israel's a big player, in my opinion, but
Yeah.
Trump is not beholden to them. Trump is not being, wag the dog, that idea of the tail wagging the
Yeah.
dog. Trump is not being, moved about by Israel. Trump has already made a coalition with a lot of Arab, with his new World Peace Board that he called the Board of Peace that he's created.
Yeah.
At least initially, Israel is not signed on as a member of that board, but he's got a whole bunch of other nations in the Middle Eastern region that are on board, including Egypt. And one of the things they're looking at is Palestine and the conflict between Israel and Palestine. So is Israel running Trump? I'd say no. And that would be an example of why they aren't running him. Israel doesn't like the Board of Peace as it stands because it's not doing what Israel wants. They can't wag it.
Well, but I think Trump has shown, moving the embassy in his first term to Jerusalem was a big sign, right? It's like, that's a sign that we respect Israel's historical claim to the land.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays, all these far left lunatics all trying to destroy Canada about indigenous rights and claims. Well, I'm sorry, would not Israel also be protected under indigenous rights of the world under UNDRIP?
It's more complicated with them because of the diaspora and the return to Israel. And then, of course, in their own books, they admit to going in and clobbering the Canaanites.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Bible has many things to clearing the land.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I don't think that's the intent. I mean, the point is they went in there but who is to blame for all of this? If you want somebody to blame, you got to look at the colonial powers that had carved up the Middle East and were under the control of the French and under the control of the British and under the control of the Italians and under the control of every European power during its era of colonialism. I mean, Africa was carved up. Everywhere in the world was carved up to their interests. They were the world powers.
Yeah, think about that. I like what Blake's saying here because understand that Israel had no power to create itself. It was world powers that went and created Israel and drew up the borders, in that area following the conclusion of World War II. So by 1947, 1948, Israel's on scene. So, and also they did the same thing with the Baltics when they created Yugoslavia out of Croatia and Herzegovina and Serbia and all these territories. So the West has a habit of creating political borders and drawing up lines to suit their own interests, but seldom does it work out for the people involved. And you always get these nationalist movements that fragment these loose associations. I think the same thing has happened in the Palestinian region where they gave the land to Israel, but then the Palestinians were started, hey, what about us, right?
Well, and you look at the way the borders are drawn in the Middle East, like Iraq. wasn't even a country, right? That was a colonial developed country. Its natural borders were ignored. The Kurds were in the north. They had their natural borders of where the old
Yeah.
nations used to be, and the tribal side of different peoples that lived in those areas. And you look at Kuwait, right? It's got this big panhandle that kind of shoots off
Yeah.
into where the oil wells are,
Yeah.
designed by those colonial powers back then, creating kingdom states
That's
basically
brilliant.
by the
Yeah.
United Kingdom, so that money could flow through there. And we can go back to Promethean Actions, talking about the London financial elite are
Yeah. Yeah.
running these bank systems there.
Do you know a guy that needs to be reevaluated is Lawrence of Arabia?
Oh yeah,
Lawrence of Arabia. If you watch Lawrence of Arabia, it's the story of how the Bedouin tribes all coalesce into nation states under the guidance of the British government, essentially.
to defeat the Germans and the Turks.
Yeah,
out of there.
and get rid of the IDs, the Italians in that same region. Of course,
Yeah.
they came in Abyssinia and Ethiopia, and then you had French having control of Morocco and Algiers, and so everything was controlled and dominated by European powers. But then the independence movements start coming about, and the tribes start coalescing into nation states, facilitated in large measure by Lawrence of Arabia. If you watch the old film, the David
Good
Lean,
point.
incredible
That's an
film.
excellent point.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch it again because
Are we
it
the
brings all new-
baddies? Are we the baddies?
Yeah, that's right. And think a lot of this change, of course, when oil became the cornerstone of the development of society, and oil being found in those areas. So
Yeah.
and so easy to get. I think that's what people don't understand, that why Middle Eastern oil is so powerful. It's because it's easy to get, it's easy to produce, and there's vast quantities of it versus those of us in North America having to produce it from tar sands or shale oil, or from, you have to go down deep through Earth's crust and different, it's very difficult to drill in. I mean, Texas has some good oil and stuff like that, but when you watch, the experience that we do, but those areas, it's right below the surface. It's easy to get, it's easy money, and power wanted it, right? And that's how those lines were really divided up, is the rise of oil.
Also, two more stories, because I see by the clock on wall, our time's almost up here. A young 20-year-old is dead after being brutally attacked in Lyon. He was providing security for called Nemesis, campaigning for European women's safety. The far left Antifa beat this young man, apparently 20 years old, to death. He was now pronounced brain dead following this attack. A whole bunch of them. They mob, right? They run in mobs and operate that way. So just horrific. That's heartbreaking.
They
And
need
then,
to be declared a terrorist organization and just
Well,
go after them, because
from
they're
our-
Marxists. They're
Yeah.
communists. That's
Yeah.
running it.
And then I'll share one last thing. This is kind of interesting. Who knows, right? Poor old England's got its hands full right now. Here we go. Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. This may not be a surprise. Rupert Lowe has officially launched a new political party called Restore Britain. The establishment is in ruins. This is from Inevitable West. So a new political party called Restore Britain. The problem is we've already got reform. So this is all this is going to do. And then we got Tommy Robinson's people.
Split.
Yeah. So you've got the right fragmenting into a whole bunch of, pet projects. I think the egos have to be put aside. Everybody's got to shoulder in on the right in England if you kids have any hope in hell of getting your country out of the mess it is in. So that's going to do it for ourselves here today. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And I do have a Patreon group going today. If you'd like to support my efforts in Patreon, I will drop a link. I don't do it a whole lot here, but every now and then. So for $5 a month, you can sit around and hang out with me. And my better half, Sue, is a big part of it. We talk about all sorts of stuff, not so much politics. I get my out here for that for the most part. But anyway, folks, Yeah. So if you want to support us, do that. That is appreciated. In the meantime, I want to thank Blake for being here. Blake, any plans for the weekend? I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, hopefully to do a little bit of prospecting. Of course, for everyone out there, go hug your loved ones, be with your loved ones. It's Valentine's weekend. Plus, I think it's a holiday weekend for both Canada and the United States. It's President's Day, I think, on
Oh
Monday.
yeah.
And
Abraham
so it's-
Lincoln, George Washington birthdays coming
Yeah,
up.
so you're going to enjoy a long weekend. In Canada is, of course, we have our Family Day, I think they call it. Depends on what province, but it all falls on the Monday as well.
Yeah.
So enjoy your long weekend, and
Be
I
safe.
hope to be looking for a little bit of gold on one of the days.
Oh, I'd love you to find it, but that would be amazing. I would just love you to find a whole bunch of gold. All right. Take care, everybody. And